Welcome to another episode of the Say Yeah podcast with me, Mr. M. I'm here to bring you that positivity, that energy, and today, something we all need to talk about, stress. Now listen up, we all know what stress feels like, right? But did you know stress isn't always the bad guy? That's right. There's a good stress and there's bad stress, and today we're going to break it all down. Good stress, or what I like to call get up and go stress, is that buzz you feel when you're pumped up, ready to tackle a challenge head on. It's the kind of stress that makes you step up your game, whether it's smashing that workout, nailing that presentation, or just getting through a busy day. It's the fire in your belly that keeps you moving forward. But then, guys, there's that sneaky bad stress, the kind that sticks around, drags you down, and starts to mess with your health. We're talking high blood pressure, heart problems, sleepless nights. Yeah, it's no joke. When stress overstays its welcome, it can take a toll on your body and mind. And that's where we need to draw the line. So today, we're going to dive deep into the world of stress, how it affects your health, how to spot the difference between the good and the bad, and most importantly, how to keep it in check so you can stay on top of your game. Are you ready? Let's do this. Everybody say yeah.
Yeah!
Oh my goodness. You know what? We've had so many technical problems getting started. Everything's been going wrong. But the important thing is that we don't get stressed out about it. Now, with me is a real, I don't know what to say. It's a real mixture of different people. First of all, there's Tony on my left. You can say hi, Tony.
Hello, everyone.
And then there's Kerry on my right.
Hello, everyone. Hi.
Okay, and over there I've got some motivators. I've got Lish, and we've also got Tracy.
Hi.
And then on Zoom, we have Laura, we have Palmer, we have Kathy, and we have Craig. All right? And you're going to find out what those guys all do and what they can contribute to our conversation. You know, we were meant to have a Vox Pop because I went out earlier and we went into the marketplace just to ask people what their views on stress were. And you know, it's quite interesting because every single person said that they suffer from stress. And you've suffered from stress.
Yeah, and still do.
Yeah.
Stress, depression, anxiety. But the latest research will tell you that only 6% of people claim that they ever get stressed. And in contrast, 63% of people across the UK experience stress at least weekly.
Yeah.
Which, if you think maybe 6 years ago, that was only 30% odd. That was just over a third 6 years ago. And we get it. There's a lot that's happened since then. We've had COVID lockdowns. We've had, war in Eastern Europe. There's riots. There's a cost of living crisis. And it would be interesting to know how you got on out on the streets today when you did the Vox Pop and what the responses from the public were.
Sure. Hey, how you doing, my brother? Listen, you have one of those jobs which I don't envy. Yeah. Hey, tell me something. Do you know what stress is?
Yeah, definitely.
You do? Yeah. Explain to me how stress affects you.
Stress, I mean, when you're in the job
Yeah.
and you're driving like long hours
Yes.
and you have to get through the peak, the congestion time and all that can be very stressful.
What's the most stressful situation that you've had to deal with?
Well, I've actually just come out of, I've just finished a detox program, a rehab.
Good on you.
So
Good on you.
I'm just going back to my own town, which,
Yeah.
it's part of the process.
Do you ever get to the point where you go, I can't get out of bed this morning?
I have done in the past.
Yeah.
It's not happened lately, but yeah, I have done in the past.
It is, I mean, it's getting tougher every day with
Sure.
obviously a lot of competition.
So what does stress mean to you? How did it affect you?
Well, stress for me is everywhere.
Yeah.
And I can never, I never take stress out of my life. And I focus heavily on negative stress.
Right.
And I've never come to terms with the comprehension that there is good stress. So my thought is weighted heavily on stress. When I hear about stress and people say, I am stressed, my default is to think about why you are stressed and what are the external factors that are causing that stress negatively.
That's your stressors. What is your stressor? So what is there a point at which you go, this is a thing that's actually causing me stress, and what am I going to do about it? Do you ask yourself that question?
Yeah, quite often. I think with all, with men or women, we all have stress at any point of the day, and sometimes I can never identify what that cause is. If I know what the cause of the root cause of the stress is, then yeah, I will try and put a process in place that's going to enable to pull me back from that stress.
Okay, so when you're stressed, what do you do to get out of it? What do you actually do?
Sometimes I let it happen, but more often than not, I will just try and take myself to a quiet place.
Right.
Just give myself time
And
to
that works for you?
contemplate.
Yeah.
Yeah, more often than not, quietness, calmness, peaceful surroundings, good food. Actually, sometimes I just need to re-energize and stop and reset. Give myself a good personal reset. Sometimes it takes a little longer than others.
Okay, thank you. Let me go to Kathy, Dr. Kathy.
Hello.
Hi. How does stress affect our bodies and daily routines?
Well, if you think about, you were saying about good stress. So good stress is what drives us, motivates us to achieve. It's kind of keeps us, on top of things sometimes. And there is a good level of stress. And what is happening in the body when we have our stress increasing to drive us and motivate us is the heart rate increases. Adrenaline causes an increase in heart rate. You get cortisol causes an increase in your blood glucose, so you have energy to drive you forward, to be active for whatever you need to do. So the original kind of research on stress was, the fight or flight, and that you're going out to hunt and you need energy to, the stress drives you to have energy to go out and hunt and just thrive and survive. But the problem is our lives are much more sedentary now, so we're producing all this energy, the increased heart rate, the increased blood sugar, but we're maybe not doing anything with that mobilizing of our energy levels. And we might be just sitting there while all of these factors and elements are increasing in our body. It may be just staying there, and then it has nowhere to go. If it's because we're overloaded in work and we're mentally stressed and we're just kind of, everything's piling up on top of us, and there's no physical outlet for that stress, the body just becomes overwhelmed, so the blood pressure then increases because the heart rate is at an upper level all the time. The blood glucose is staying high with all this energy and it's nowhere to go. So then that's when it starts to affect the body because it accumulates.
Right.
And that's that overwhelmed feeling that we feel then because the body's all revved up but nowhere to go.
Sure. Now, you have worked with companies. Has the workplace become more stressful? What's the difference now with what's been going on?
Yeah, so if you think about our lifestyles and how they've changed, and I suppose as well, we're spending more and more time in front of screens. If not work screens, it's phone screens. And we also have this in touch with everywhere in the world all the time to check out what's happening, the news all over the place. We also get a FOMO and wondering, what everyone else is doing while we're not doing anything. So it's a constant turned on feeling. So that can lead to stress in many people. But I think one of the other things that I've been aware of in working in the workplace environment and managing health and well-being in those areas, I think over the last while, whilst yes, stress may become more prominent, people are more inclined to talk about it, I think, now. They will search for solutions, search for outlets. They might be happier to say, I'm feeling a bit stressed. Is there something that my workplace can offer me?
And so what's the kind of take-home message that you give to people in terms of what you do if you're feeling stressed? What would you recommend?
Well, I think it's, as what we were just what Tony was saying earlier, is knowing and recognizing the signs. And one of the things that with big causes of stress as well is lack of control or feeling a lack of control. So one of the things is looking at what I can control in this certain situation and what is really out of my control, and then choosing your reaction. How can I react to it? Can I just bury my head in the sand and try and just keep going even though I'm stressed? Or can I take that time out and find what works for me.
Sure.
And one of the things when I've done workshops in the past is teaching people to build a little toolkit, a resource kit, or a first aid kit for their mental health. And that might be, okay, just like we put, a plaster on a cut, I'm going to pull something out of my toolkit for mental well-being to fix me and make me feel better. So they could be things like going for a walk, going out in fresh air, could be putting on some calming music, could be doing some mindfulness, could be taking some deep breathing or doing some breathing practice. You have your toolkit, you know what works in different situations. And when you start to recognize those signs before they get really bad, you pull something out of that little kit bag and try it.
And those practices you're talking about, does it work in your personal life and in your business life the same? Is it the same application, or do you need to treat the stresses from your work environment differently to how you deal with stresses at home?
Well, if you think about it physiologically, stress doesn't discriminate in our body. It's going to have the same physical effect on our body, no matter whether it's work or home life that's stressing us out or causing the overload of stress. So really, it's the things we pull out from our toolkit could be the same. But again, it's what is realistic in your work environment. You can't suddenly put on music, maybe, whereas you can in your home life. So, okay, what else can I try? Maybe I'll just try the breathing or the mindfulness while I'm sitting at my desk, because then, because I can't use another thing from my kit.
Right. Now, I know you don't have much time and you may have to go, and Dr. Kathy, you've been around me for lots of years. You've got great experience with working with companies and stuff like that. But let me ask you this fact.
Did you know that on average men die 3.5 years earlier than women? Men are more vulnerable to infectious diseases, hypertension, drug abuse and aggressive behaviour.
Did you know in 2020, a staggering 79% of British adults in employment reported experiencing work-related stress regularly, which is 20% higher than the findings from 2018. Shockingly, only 1% of UK employees say they never feel stressed at work. Another statistic, and this is important for you, is that in 2023, work-related stress and burnout cost the UK economy £28 billion and resulted in 23.3 million sick days lost per year. Shocking stats, isn't it?
It really is incredible. And I suppose what I think is maybe the difference, like those figures you're saying there could probably have been quoted for maybe back pain a number of years ago, because people wouldn't admit they were stressed. They weren't taking time out for stress. Now people are saying, actually, I need to take some time off. I am feeling burnt out. So maybe things have changed in what people report that they need to take time off for. But then it's also, we look at, have we gone back, having had all the changes that COVID brought, and the fact that now we can work from home more and we can hybrid work and we can change our lifestyles and adapt. Have we then forgotten what we learned from those years and gone straight back into that, cramming everything in and being as busy as possible? And I wonder, have people slipped back into old habits, or are they still recognizing some of the positive things that came out during the change in lifestyle that we had?
But I'll tell you what I want to do. I want to speak to Tracy, because she's in a work environment, running her own business, being a fitness instructor and stuff like that. And I want you, Tracy, to tell me about some of your experiences in stress.
Oh, wow. Well, obviously it's difficult having your own business. One experience that I had, which extremely affected me, was obviously the lockdown. Yeah. We're running our own business. We've got 3 children. So financially, we had huge worries. It was the first time ever that I clutched my chest and felt the panic set in, those feelings of just helplessness, feeling sick, not knowing where to turn. I experienced that for a few days, and I think, as Dr. Kathy said, I think the control was the big thing, because you just felt like everything was out of your control. So it was about taking the control back, thinking, right, what are we going to do about it? How can we move forward?
But there was a point at which when you really kind of felt low.
Oh, there were huge tears, which again, when you've got your children, you're trying to be strong for your children because you want to instill them, yes, that life can be tough and they need to deal with that, but you're also trying to hide the fact that you're falling apart because you need that strength for them.
Right.
Which I think is very difficult. So we kind of bury the stress maybe and hold on and put the mask on, whereas you're up here, smiley, looking okay, whereas you're sinking inside. And again, for me, like I said, it was just looking at what could be a positive, what could I be grateful from. So even though there were really hard times to get out of that, I was saying, okay, so what good is coming out of this? So good for me was that I was getting more time actually with the children and quality time because they were at home all day. So it was finding the positive. And again, going online, I'd never done that. So it was like, okay, this is a new experience. What can I gain from this? What can I learn? So it was just trying to find the positives that were there to lift myself up and in turn lift others.
Thank you for all that. You know, what we're doing is we're navigating through all these different stories and scenarios to make you understand that you're actually not alone if you're dealing with it. There's people out there, isn't it, Tony? There's lots of people out there who all have different levels of stress and all different ways of actually dealing with it, yeah?
Yeah, and there's great organisations out there to support you, and some of them are only a phone call away. It's very interesting listening to Tracy talking about her stresses and, you know, how she didn't overcome those stresses but learned how to respond to those stresses, and especially when you've got young children that are, you know, reliant upon you. Yeah, and I think we all saw that going through the pandemic. It wasn't just the strength for ourselves, that it was the strength for others, and everybody needed that strength for others, and creating that community that was built on a foundation of stress and anxiety.
Okay. Palmer, what's been the most stressful period in your life, Palmer?
There have been several.
There have been several.
I mean, that's quite easy. That's quite easy, isn't it?
Yeah, go on.
Stress comes in many different ways. I've been stressed, highly stressed by bereavement.
Yeah.
Highly stressed by having to care for people who are going to die and going to die soon. Even more highly stressed by an unexpected death. And those were times, though, where I didn't feel the whole adrenaline thing. I carried on doing what I was doing. I was literally just working through. I tended to be there in support for everybody else. So I supported everybody else. I didn't support myself. I didn't feel that that was my thing that I needed to do. I needed to be able to help others go through it. And then afterwards, my grieving came. And that's when the bucket of ice or whatever it is falls on you, because you've gone through it all. You think you're coping, but actually you're not. So for me, I am a doer, physical doer. I'm a dinosaur when it comes to the whole internet thing, but I am a doer. I will do things to help me offset the effects of stress. So we've done the bereavement, we've just moved house. That is a stressing. So what did I do? My way of coping with that was going to the old house and cleaning it from top to bottom.
Yes.
That was literally my way of getting away from the stress of this new house, putting it all in order. I just went and cleaned the other one, and it was spotless. And I felt a great sense of achievement. And I thought it was a job well done. So for me, I will always be doing things. Throughout all the stresses that I've had, I have to do something. If I can't do anything, I'll go out for a walk. I don't sit down and slog. For me, there are times that I slob. It's not that I don't. It's usually when you're away. But my time. Well, you know, just watch Netflix for about 10 episodes or something. But that's a pleasurable thing. That's not getting away from stresses. I don't do that. I don't do that to sort of like get away from the stress. I don't cloak that stress in that way. I will just go out there. I'll go out there and dig up weeds. I'll go and cut the grass. I'll go and do whatever it is. I have to do something physical. And that physicality makes me feel that I've achieved something somewhere along the line.
And mentally, when you're under stress, what do you actually do?
In some ways, I calm down. Small stresses are actually worse. It's like today, I had trouble with Zoom. And I'm going like, "Grr." But God forbid, if someone was to have an accident outside, I'd go out there cool as a cucumber, go and cope with it, go and deal with it, deal with all the blood and everything else that there is in it, and deal with all of that, come in and then crash.
Well,
But it's for me, I can actually deal with big things. I can deal with big things. It's small things that accumulate. You have little idiotic things that sometimes just think, oh. But for me, yeah, stress for me, I have to do something. I have to be doing.
and when it affects you mentally, how do you feel? What happens?
A lot of stress, a lot of anger, emotional issues, things, you know, stuff we have to deal with daily, and you know we have to overcome them. You know.
Those three things are really good, actually. So you said basically exercise, all right. You said structure, and also you mentioned food.
Yes.
And when you eat food, is that comfort eating, or is it because you're just eating good food, so you know it's doing your body good?
I think you know that you should be eating good food.
Yeah.
Sometimes your brain works against you and you go for the comfort food because it's the easy option.
Yeah.
But you don't feel good from doing that. So sometimes just like pushing yourself to make sure you're eating well, I think that can help.
Thank you for that insight, Palmer. I'm going to go to someone else who may have a different story to tell. Lish.
Hello.
Now, you're probably the youngest in this room.
Yes.
Even though you're older than 30.
Just had to go there.
Tell me about stress. What kind of stress have you had to deal with?
So, stress for me, I mean, we've all gone through so many different things, haven't we? I mean, I went through quite a dark place when I was younger, and I think I suppressed quite a lot of it. So what that did really is come out in my skin, or, you know, like health-wise, and then that's a whole other journey, because then when you've got things, I had cystic acne, and I went through that for, how old am I now? This is where I need to be honest, I'm 31. So I think it may have stopped around 26, 27.
So how many years do you go through it?
Like 14, or it would have been 11. This is where you all realise I'm terrible at maths now. So I was about 11. And it's really mad to think that cystic acne can affect you the way that it affected me, because it's always like it's out in the open, it's the first thing people see, or that's how you feel at the time. So I'll give you a scenario. I remember being in the house and I literally would put a full face of makeup on because I could not bear anyone to see me without having makeup on, covering the bumps, because they were literally on my neck, on my chin, my cheeks, everything. And I always felt so sad. And I remember I was off school for quite a while, and I remember going back in and I was like, right, I'm gonna have the courage to go back in, no one really cares, and you tell yourself all this. And I remember the first time walking up the corridor, and this guy turned to me, and I'd already been through quite an emotional time already. So on top of that, I'm dealing with the skin. And he just went, whoa. And I was like, what? He went, what's happened to your face? And I just felt myself sink. And I know we shouldn't be too bothered about, you know, how we look, because it's what here that matters. But when you're younger, you don't think of those things at all, you know. And then it kind of takes you down the route of going to the doctors, trying Chinese herbal medicines. And of course, when you talk to the doctors, they want to put you on the pill. And the pill absolutely can send, if it doesn't agree with you, send your hormones all over the place, which can then drive you into a state of depression. I just, you know, it's...
What was your lowest point? What did you do?
In that journey, I remember just simply wanting to feel happy again and good about myself. I thought I could find it by reading magazines, but of course, when you go through the whole magazine, you're looking at people and you're comparing yourself. And I talk about it now and I think how mad it is that I spoke so badly to myself during that stage, and it's really upsetting. But of course, you go through the magazines and then that takes you down a darker, deeper, because you're comparing yourself to everyone. And then my nan actually gave me a video. It was a fitness video. I wonder whose it was.
Oh, who might
I
that?
wonder who.
I wonder who. So to cut this story down quite a lot, I remember putting that on, and at that point I hadn't really left the house for like quite a while. You know, my attendance was about 53% at school. I was rarely there. It was terrible.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very bad. And anyway, so I put this video on and I was like, I need to feel good. I need to feel happy, and I'm not going to go out and do it. I just want to feel happy. And I put this video on and I remember laughing and sweating, and it's almost like I had this sense of purpose. That movement, like you say, movement is medicine, and I felt this rush through my body like, this is what I've got to do to feel good. And don't get me wrong, there'll be times now where you'll go through your really low points and you can either like be all the way up here or right down here. I can't seem to find an in between. So I'll either be all the way up here or real sad. And I just don't want to do anything. You know, it's like Palmer was saying about not slobbing out and whatnot. I am that slob. I'm just sad. I don't want to move.
That was your escapism. That's how you coped with it, yeah?
Yeah, but the movement was, you know, a big... Oh, you mean being a slob?
Yes.
Yeah, it was. And you completely want to shut off from the world, you know, when you get to that point. Because I think people always assume, because we're like fitness and always trying to stay positive all the time, that we don't feel it, but we do. We go through all those, you know, motions. And I don't necessarily want to be getting up and exercising and everything, but the thing that you don't really want to do is the thing that you need to do in order to feel good again. So it's always remembering that we all need to put the effort in. But it is, I get it is difficult if you're already down here, but you're the only person that can get up.
But where you are now, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being in a good place, are you in a good place?
Yeah, because I feel free now.
Right. Do you find yourself getting emotional when you talk about how it was then?
Yeah, massively.
And if a morning gets up and you got a spot on your face, do you all of a sudden get PTSD? You're thinking...
Yeah, and it's mad, because I remember going to get my makeup done with someone, and she said to me, oh, you know, can I take a before and after? And this was only a few years ago, and I was like, can I just put a little bit of concealer on? And she was like, well, I was like, okay, all right, just do it. So she takes the picture and then she takes the after picture. I go home and I look, and I literally remember I was just crying. And the only reason I was crying is because when I looked at it, my face wasn't how it used to be. But I still have always viewed it as being that way. So when I saw it, I was annoyed at myself, because I'd been telling myself for so long, I still look that way. That's still how people see me. And again, not that matters, but when you have been through it and you feel it and you've had people make comments about you for so long, you still kind of get that. But
no, brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's a real good insight, isn't it? Because our personal image, how we feel about ourselves, is really important.
But there was like a domino effect with that. So it went from skin, then trying detoxes to try and help my skin. Then when I'd go through that, I'd then start going through body image and all of that, and it was a vicious circle. Vicious. But I'm free.
Wow.
There's still little things, but now it's just being around good people, moving, and
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing with me. Okay. Now I'd like to highlight an incredible charity making a huge strides in mental health. MQ, Mental Health Research. Welcome to the podcast, Craig.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I know you've been waiting a while. Yeah, I'm eager to discuss with you the connection between stress and mental health. Can you share your insights on how stress impacts mental health, please?
Well, the thing with stress, so as we've discussed earlier, is that stress isn't necessarily a problem. Now, small amounts of stress is great. Now, like today, a lot of the A-level results came out. Stress may help some of these students like stay up late and revise and do things like that and really help them. But it's this long-term stress which is really the problem, and that is what can be a cause and be a symptom of other mental health conditions. And that's where the problem is. It's really that long-term stress. And as we said, that it does change your body physically, but in different aspects, it can have like really, really bad consequences. So for example, MQ, we did a piece of research. So Kathy was talking about earlier about burnout. Now, burnout is a syndrome, according to the World Health Organization. It's a syndrome. It's not necessarily a medical or a mental health condition, but it's where you're mentally, physically, emotionally just exhausted, where you just don't feel like you can do just anything. And usually burnout is evolved, it's normally mentioned in the same vein as workplace stress. And I'd be remiss to mention that it's World Mental Health Day in October. The whole theme is workplace stress. Now, burnout, where it differs is that where it differs from stress is that burnout has these vibrations that affects you not only in your work life or wherever that situation may be. It might be that you're a caregiver looking after somebody that's ill or a parent. It starts to affect other areas of your life to the point where even the things that made you feel happy just doesn't work anymore. And that is when these things are quite serious. And as you said earlier, this is causing a lot of employees and the nation a lot of money. And this is why we do this type of research, so that we can actually help people and millions of people moving forward.
And so your charity do a lot of research, yes, into what causes mental health problems, yes?
Yeah, so...
Are there any particular findings that you've got that you can mention, that you have researched, that you now know better or know more about?
Well, this is the thing with research and mental health conditions. We, like, compared to other conditions such as cancer and other physical ailments, research doesn't get enough money. So there's a lot of questions that we just simply don't know, and it's taking a lot of time. So if, for example, the time it took to think of like cures for certain physical conditions, it's going to take maybe 100 years plus to do that, to find those same results when it comes to mental health. Okay. So there's a lot of questions that we at this moment we still don't know.
Okay. Away from the charity then, let me ask you this question. What is your stressor? Have you ever had stress badly to deal with?
How much time do we have?
Break it down into 1 minute.
Okay, I mean, like, let's use what's currently happening. So I recently bought a house, and me and my fiance are currently renovating it. And at every single point of this journey, there has been something that goes wrong. There's more money that needs to be done, and you know, I'm not made of money. I'm trying to learn these things myself. I'm plastering walls. I've never plastered walls. That's not my forte. And then at the same point, as I mentioned, fiance, I'm planning a wedding at the same time. To think of these both things, I don't know why I decided to play my life on hard mode, but yeah. But in that case, somebody, sorry, I missed her name, was talking about acne.
Yes.
I too had severe acne when I was younger, to the point where I went on to a pill called Roaccutane, and that had my doctor at the time, my dermatologist said, you know, if you have any, if you start feeling but you have these feelings of like hurting yourself or anything like that, you should stop. But because I really like the problems with this, with my skin, I just felt like I needed to push through it, which wasn't healthy at all. I started feeling those things, but just to push through it, it's, you know, there was a lot of stress in that situation where I didn't really want to tell anybody that I was going through these things. And really and truly, the safest thing I should have, but to push through it, because at that moment, it was even thinking about it now, it's making my heart race. It was a very, very stressful situation.
Right, but you're through it, and you're on the road. Yeah,
that's it.
Great, thank you for sharing the insight today. Your perspective, you know, has opened my eyes, and a special thank you to MQ, of course, and Mental Health Research, for the incredible work that you guys are doing in advancing mental health understanding. Your support is going to be vital for the ongoing conversation. Now, we've heard so many different stories, so many different approaches, and I think it's important to hear from you, Carrie, because faith, belief, mental well-being is all part of what you believe is the cure and the answer for coping when dealing with stress, yeah?
On one level, yes, and it's the only thing, because everything comes from a belief in the mind. Whether we like it or not. Now, I've had my fair share of stress, from teenage stress to awful events and divorce and remarrying the same person, even more stressful. And also moving house over 25 times, I counted once. So I've had a lot of stress, I've had my fair share. But the only thing that helps me with my stress, and don't get me wrong, sometimes I will say, oh, for goodness sake.
Well, you're going to curse then? You sounded like it.
I was going to say, oh, flipping heck.
Of all the people, I thought it was not going to be
Carrie.
I'm the mischievous minister. After all those things, and it's so easy for me to sit here and say that, but you believe me, I've been through my fair share, but I didn't know at the time. How do you know as a teenager what your mental awareness even is? We didn't even hear of mindfulness when I was growing up. People think you're making it up. But we've got access to these tools, and we've been talking about the effects of stress and everything, but how about, what if we brush our teeth every morning, we put our shoes on, we tie our laces, we walk down the stairs, we're making decisions all the time. Why not make a decision to start your day a bit more calmly, instead of waiting till the stress happens, because then you're sometimes in a situation that you don't know how to deal with the stress. So maybe we start our day, and it only takes 5 minutes, can change the rest of your day. We do the early morning workouts, which are amazing, and that can change your day. But it's taking the effort to do that. But when you practice, and it takes practice, and you don't beat yourself up if you pretend that your alarm didn't go off and you missed the workout one day, you don't beat yourself up about that. No matter how much Mr. M will shout at you for not being in class, you just don't beat yourself up. You do your own thing. You put on a few tracks and dance and just try and relieve the stress, but try not to overthink it too much. One of the biggest lessons I learned was, don't make a big deal of things, which is very easy to say. We put ourselves under so much stress because we've got to look a certain way, we've got to act a certain way, we've got to say the right thing. And what if we say the wrong thing? Did it matter? What if we didn't have the eyelashes on that day? Did it matter? I mean, sometimes you say, well, yeah, it did, because I didn't want everyone to see me like this. And then you have to have a word with yourself, get your head out your backside. And we're talking about COVID. Did it matter that we didn't have loo roll? We've got newspaper that I used to wipe my backside on when I was 5 and 6 if we ran out. We got eyes out. Nobody moaned about it, you know, back in the day.
Tracing paper.
And one thing that keeps coming to my... What?
It's like tracing paper.
Tracing paper. Yeah, you could even draw a picture, you see, and use it. But anyway, but what I was thinking, you know, the reason we get so upset and so stressed is because we assign our bodies roles that they cannot fulfill. And that's what we do all the time.
Thought-provoking.
Yeah.
Can you give me some short-term tips that we can put in place?
I can. So one of the top tips for stress relief is saying no, but also saying an honest no. We always think, we do things, and then that, again, it puts us under this stress because we're assigning our body to a role we don't want to do even, and delegate that to somebody else. So an honest no. If you say, I'm sorry, no, and I can do something
difficult
else.
sometimes,
It's difficult
but, yeah.
sometimes. But if you end your conversation with a but, you leave it open for negotiation.
Yeah.
So I've learned to say no, and I'm going to continue
Right.
what I'm doing.
Right.
Exercise, as we said, pop a tune on, couple of minutes, that's all it takes. Get your favourite song, get the natural stress reducer. Don't rush to the cabinet and pop a few pills. Just get your endorphins going. It's a lot cheaper as well. And prioritise, make lists of things to prioritise, clear your mind and try to stay organised. It's so difficult. A lot of people have got all these conditions now and again. But I say to myself, I've got to do that, and try and do multi things. But if you say, no, just focus on one. Take breaks, have a rest. Palmer was saying, take a bit of time out. If it's watching Netflix, never feel guilty. Engage in a hobby. Hobbies are supposed to be fun, not something, oh, God, I've got to be good at this, I've got to get good at golf, or whatever you take up. Just have a kick about, whatever you want to do. Take moments for yourself, as we said. Please, 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 just try and start your day with a few deep breaths. That's all it's going to take. And then that becomes a regular practice. And when the stress occurs, you will have the tools, as Dr. Kathy said, available to draw upon. And at work as well, if, don't be afraid to tell your boss. Because we've all been through stress, and they can help. And again, say, this workload that you are giving me, I can do it, but not in the time you allocated. I'm sorry, no.
Kerry, thank you for that insight. Any final thoughts before I close here, Tony?
It was such an interesting hour, and I've learned a bit, especially around the good things and the bad things and the big things and the small things and the things that trigger your stresses, I think are incredibly important.
Sure.
Palmer said something about, I don't get the little things stress me out more than the big things, and that resonated deeply with me. I would swear at a plate for dropping it, but if there was a car accident, I would be outside. The other one, and just picking up on what Dr. Kathy said about, sometimes it's easier to not put on your own oxygen mask.
Sure.
And you can just rush straight into the fire, and you can try and help people and support people as much as you can. And it's counterintuitive to look after yourself first, but that is also really, really, really important. And comparing those social norms from Lish was really touching. And so thank you for that.
Yeah, well, I want to thank everybody for being here, because I didn't give you all a lot of time. I'm sorry the hour has gone real quickly. I want to thank the audience of two who are here, the guys behind the camera who are actually doing their work, you, Kerry, of course yourself, Tony, Lish, Tracy. I want to thank you guys on Zoom, from Palmer to her insight, to Craig for all the advice that you've given us based on the research, Laura for the talks on nutrition, Dr. Kathy, you're always around and you're always there to help me. If you're feeling stressed at any time, please don't suffer in silence. Talk to someone, anyone, about life and what's going on, especially your friends and colleagues and your family. Yeah, if you need any support or advice, please speak to your GP or call the Samaritans on 116-123 or email joe@samaritans.org. Listen, it's my pleasure being with you. Thank you so much for being part of what is our first podcast of Say Yeah. I've enjoyed the subject matter. It's been tough. It's been interesting. It's been invigorating. And I haven't told you the stress I've been under the last hour. But trust me, my hair is grayer. I feel so good. So everybody here, what's my Lish?
People really want to know how you deal with stress.
How do I deal with it?
How does Mr. Motivator deal with his stress?
That is for another story, because in fact, for me, when it came to stress, and we really was the most stressful period of my life was when we had the loss of our granddaughter. And that really knocked me for six. And as Palmer said, we were there being strong for everybody else. And I realized I hadn't been crying. And I've learned as a male that what we all need to do is wear our heart on our sleeves a bit more. And don't just cry because something is joyous. Cry when in fact things are rough, because it gave me great relief. And the point at which I got great relief was when I sat down and I said to Palmer, my youngest daughter, I know exactly why I've been ill since the death of our granddaughter, and I need to cry. And I bawled my eyes out. And afterwards, I felt like a cloud had been lifted off my body, and I felt great. So you guys got to stay tuned for our episodes where we continue to tackle important topics and bring you tips to live your best life. Until next time, stay positive, stay motivated, be well, and say yeah.
Yeah!